Hi, this is Rick Seymour. I congratulate you on taking the time to invest in your future, to look at options and opportunities that might make things a little different than what you thought they might turn out. You belong to what I think is a very fulfilling profession. The fact that you have such a positive impact on other people's health and wellness, I think is an extraordinary thing. But like any business, in addition to the benefits, there are some challenges. But let's look at the trends, first of all, that lead to the benefits. Because one of the things we know is that there's a huge move toward prevention today. People realizing the importance of exercise and how they need to incorporate it into their daily discipline. So there's an increased consumer demand. There's a huge failure of the diet companies with their quick fixes, if you will, that really don't solve the problems long term because people have finally figured out that exercise has got to be part of the program. We've got a maturing baby boomer population that's concerned about their health. And you, with advanced certifications, have more credibility in the marketplace today than you ever have before. And when you add to that the internet technology and online commerce that you can incorporate into your own personal business, there's an amazing amount of potential that's available today. Paul Zane Pilsner is considered one of the best forecasters of trends in this country. And he talks about the wellness revolution, the fact that the health and wellness industry will grow 500%. To probably around $1 trillion in just the next few years. But the challenge is this. While the health and wellness industry is growing over 500%, expectations are that personal trainer compensation is projected to grow just 10 to 20% during that same period. So if you're making $40,000 today, the odds are in a few years you'll be earning $50,000 if you're doing well, but not much better than that. See, here's the challenge. If you look at the average incomes around the country by region, they're all pretty similar. There are some disparities, but the trend has been an increase of less than 20% in the last 5 years. So what do you think the next 5 years are going to bring, especially in the kind of economy we're in today? One of the challenges is that many people in the kind of economy we have today is that they see a personal trainer as a luxury that they can do without. So it becomes more and more challenging to find those clients. Well, if you look at the industry as a whole, where is the money right now? Well, there's a piece of the pie up here called personal training. Health clubs have the bulk of it. There's a big weight loss segment in our population that gets a big chunk of change on a very consistent basis, whether people are being successful or not. And then the area of supplements and sports nutrition as it relates to this piece of the pie. Here's the interesting thing, though. Most of the growth over the next few years are going to be in these two segments of the pie. There's about a saturation of health clubs right now. Personal training compensation, again, is only projected to grow about 20%. So most of that growth that Paul Zane Pilsner talks about is in this arena right here. But herein lies the challenge. As an individual, quite often we're caught in what I'll call the trainer trap. Because your income is limited by the number of hours you can work and the number of clients you can attract. Let's kind of break it down for, let's say, a typical personal trainer. You schedule 25 sessions per week, and let's say you charge $60 per session. 10% cancellations, which is typical for somebody who's very good in this industry. That means you end up with 22 sessions a week. Post-tax income is $1,056. That's $4,224 per month, or about $50,000 a year. Now, if you want to increase your income beyond that, what are your options? You only really have two. Work more hours, book more clients, or increase what you charge. We all know that if you increase it too much, you're going to lose your client base no matter what you do. So really the only real option is work more hours. But how many hours in a day can you work? In other words, there's a cap. There's a limit on your income. No matter how good you are and how hard you work, there's a point beyond which you cannot go. Well, let's look at the future and what you can expect as the years go by, because we know that for every 100 people who work 45 years or more, only 5% become financially independent. In other words, at age 65, if you work from 20 to 65, only 1% will be rich, 25% of those will have inherited it, 4% will be financially independent, and 75% of those will have done it by building their own business. 62% will still be working because they have to, not because they want to. 28% will be broke, hoping the Social Security is going to keep them afloat, and I'm not even sure it's going to be around in a few years. And 5% of them won't even make it to 65 years. But here's the interesting thing. This 95% of the population got where they are by building someone else's business. Whose business are you building today? Because the only way to get up here for the vast majority of people is to build it and own it, not work for somebody else. But let's look at some basic economics here. There are 4 ways you can make money in this country, and they're all pretty obvious and pretty intuitive when you think about it. First of all, you can be an employee, work for somebody else at a set income that they determine, and that probably isn't going to change that much over time. You can go out on your own, be self-employed, develop your own personal training business. Now, there's significant risk associated with that, but more than the risk, you may have superb skill as a trainer. But how are you as a marketer? Because all of a sudden, 90% of the battle is your ability to market yourself, not your ability to train people. You can own your own business. Of course, you're going to have to come up with a significant number of dollars in order to make that happen, and there's a huge risk when you do that. 90% of the businesses started in this country will fail in the first 3 years. Or you can be an investor if somehow you magically came up with sufficient amount of money to have the money working for you instead of people working for you. But again, it takes a lot of money to do it, and there's a significant amount of risk. But here's what fascinates me. This side of the quadrant, employees and self-employed, only have 5% of the wealth in this country. These folks have 95% of the wealth. So which side would you rather be on? Because the reality is this. In this particular industry, as an employee, you can be a club trainer, a group instructor, you can do membership sales, you can get more certifications so you can charge a little bit more, have a little bit more credibility. You can be self-employed as a freelance trainer, a group instructor, an athletic trainer, go into corporate wellness. Or if you can come up with the money so you can open up something like a Curves or Gold's Gym or whatever, wonderful. Or as an investor, but then most of us probably haven't gotten there yet. What if, though? What if there were a 5th option? What if you're not locked into one of those 4 with all the attendant problems?